Has anyone ever challenged you to something you're an expert at without them knowing it? If so, how did it turn out for them? Story 1, I was at the gym at work, and there's a fit-looking older guy running on the treadmill. There's also another guy there wandering around, not really working out, but trying to talk to everyone and offer advice. What is it with guys thinking girls need help in the gym? Haha. Just being a pest in general. He wanders over to the guy running and starts asking him what he's training for. Running guy answers ultra marathon in a few weeks. Annoying guy is impressed, but jokingly, and says, will you win? RG, probably AG. Oh, huh. Yeah, you've always got to be positive, right? RG, well, I won it for the last 3 years, and the closest person to me was 50 minutes behind me. So yeah, I'm pretty positive. I surreptitiously checked out his name on the sign and register and went back to my desk to Google him. Yep, multiple record for ultra marathons, 24-hour road and treadmill races, 48-hour treadmill races. Story 2, so I enter a round-robin pool competition in Cairns, Australia. At this point in my life, I look a little scraggly. I'm also a bit more than half pissed. And my first match is against this very snazzily dressed bloke with slick back hair who proceeds to screw his very expensive cue together as I sit on the bar stool nursing a jug of beer with a mate, the shitty house cue resting up against the table. This guy has clearly watched The Color of Money a number of times, and arrogance wafts off him like so many dollar bills from an easy mark. Now, I'm not the best pool player in the known universe, but I did get my own pool table as my 10th birthday present, and I played that shitty, warped every single day for years. I then spent most of my life from 16 minus 21 playing pool in bars in New Zealand, so, I'm all right. So, anyway, Tom Cruise over here makes eye contact for the first time, and I say hello and compliment him on his rather nice cue. He responds by saying, don't worry, buddy, it'll go easy on you. Coin flip, it's my break. I down the rest of my beer and sink 2 off the break and proceed to have a dream run. I'm in that wonderful place between slightly buzzed and rather pissed where everything just feels right, and I'm sinking every shot with perfect weight and spin to bring the white into position for the next shot. 5 down, 6, 7. I'm on the black and Mr. Shark over here with the dude hasn't had a shot. The shot is actually not that hard, and being one of those perfect moments, I carpe diem by lining it up and then look up at him to lock eye contact as I hit the white, watch the black drop in my peripheral vision, smile and nod. My mate meanwhile is himself laughing. Old mate doesn't even shake my hand, walks out of the hall without saying a word, drank too much beer afterwards and didn't win the comp. Story 3, in the Marine Corps, they do a lot of wrestling grappling as training and exercise. Well, for a Marine, I was a pretty unimposing looking person. Little did they know that I had been doing jiu-jitsu, a form of grappling, for about 4 or 5 years before joining. So more than a few times I would have these big weightlifter types challenge me to grappling only for me to wipe the floor with them. It kind of became a joke once people caught on, and when we would get new guys to the unit, the guys in the know would trick them into grappling against me. Story 4, at the county fair, I was on the receiving end of some ill-natured heckling from a couple of farmhands, real good old boy types. They were being heads to everybody who signed up for the skid loader rodeo, smack talking anybody with how hot they are and how anybody else is just embarrassing themselves. For whatever reason, they especially targeted me with their lame sauce rural Iowa smack talk. It got to the point where the one got on my face. To make a boring story short, I manage an agricultural business. All I do at said business is operate a skid steer tractor. I won $10 and made a pair of brothers eat crow. Story 5, I sort of did that. I was jokingly challenging my philosophy teacher with a 1M ruler, sort of like a sword. He grabbed a pointer and completely disarmed me. Apparently, when he was at Oxford, he had done finching, and for quite a while after that. Story 6, I had an athletic scholarship in college. I swam, but after college, I went to graduate school biochemistry and proceeded to lose the swimmer physique. However, you don't lose technique. So the wife and in-laws and I are at a resort in Puerto Rico one day, and I swam across the pool to meet them. And some guy started talking up their friend to go challenge me to a race. The dude came over, he was ripped, all eye candy, and challenged me to a race across the pool and back. And the loser had to buy the other group a round of drinks. There were about 8 of them and 4 of us. It was about 30 yards or so nearly a 50-meter freestyle. And I was a sprinter in college. I had a high 23 seconds time in the event. So I agree and watch him swim and touch the other side. That's when I turned that on and underwater kick to a flip turn and then burst out beast mode on the return. I hit the wall when he was a little over halfway back. Needless to say, he bought us all a round of beers, and we actually ended up seeing them several times over the next week. He was a really cool dude, but was obviously really embarrassed. Now that I think about it, I hope either he or one of his friends or a Redditor and see this. Story 7, somebody challenged me to play a round of Age of Empires 2 medieval strategy computer game against him. I used to play that game on a competitive level. So I just proceeded to play at roughly the same snail's pace speed he did, sometimes attack him with a weak armies to make it look like I'm struggling to beat him. While in reality 90 of my troops were tucked away hidden in the back of my lands, it was closed-off arena map that made it really easy to hide them from him. So I continued to act like I'm struggling and slowly start to give in to his siege attacks, making it look he's actually going to win the game. At one point he asks in a victoriously smug voice, "So it looks like the game is over, right?" To which I reply, "Looks like it." And before he could say anything else, roughly 100 fully upgraded elite Teutonic knights emerged from my side of the fog of war and proceeded to annihilate everything in their path. His reaction was priceless. It went from complete disbelief, "Where are all those units?" from to denial, "You cheating asshat," and various other emotions, while I just had a hearty laugh. Story 8, not an expert, but I was invited to a Christmas party last year. They had a dessert competition. Not very many people knew I'm going to college for culinary arts. Won unanimously. He told me that he won a rematch next Christmas. I'm taking my baking class this semester. Good luck, mister. Story 9, I'm no expert, but I've logged way too many hours of Super Smash Bros. On N64. Somehow at parties we end up bringing out the N64. I play really well, and guys aren't a fan of girl winning with a pink Samus. Story 10 was drinking with friends at a nightclub known for getting rowdy at times. Some guy and I bumped into each other. No one's fault, just the sort of that happens in a crowded and dark room. We both spill a few sips of our drinks. I'm just about ready to say no big deal and forget the entire event. But he flips off, tells me I owe him another drink. No, I don't. He starts swearing at me, telling me I need to buy him another drink or he'll just take all of my money and buy it himself. Typical story from anyone who's dealt with a drunk in a bar looking for a fight. I work security in a hospital, a big hospital with a busy ER and a psych unit. We get in fights almost every other day, at least once a month, if not more. We get into a really good fight. I'm talking fighting some giant juice monkey on methamphetamines who's fighting like his life is on the line. We get 1 week, 40 hours of fairly intense self-defense training per year counter-strikes and takedowns mostly. So this guy doesn't scare me. I tell him one last time to drop it and try to walk past him. He puts one hand on my chest and tries to grab for my wallet, probably assuming ID out, and let him take it. I grabbed his hand, torqued around, jammed it up his back pretty hard, and gave him as hard a shove as I could in a crowded little room. Must have hurt his shoulder pretty good, but no actual damage would have been done. He stumbled a few steps away and then slunk off without looking around. Story 11, I was pretty good at Gears of War. Gears of War 2 comes out, and a kid at school was having a tourney at his house the weekend after the game released, and my buddy invited me over. The kid was talking so much the whole time, but mostly to Megwis he didn't like me. I finally have had enough and said the typical 1v1 me bro, and we get to it. Execution mode on River Me best map. I was asked to leave his house by his dad after I won because I made his 16-year-old rage and put a hole into their wall. At a holy fat I sleep, go to work, and come home to see that this thread and my comment blew the up. Story 12, someone told me to go myself. Idiot, didn't know I was practicing for that for years. I used to play trumpet in a local symphony. I gave it up because people became too competitive and dicks rather than just accepting the fact that we were making music. My friend was in the orchestra as well as a violin player. After I had quit, I went to one of the concerts, and afterward, I had no trouble getting backstage because I used to be tight with the security guard back when I played. So I met up with my friend, and he asked what I thought about things and how they sounded. After I gave him my thoughts, he joked that they were missing a strong trumpet part. This launched me into a little critique of the brass section. Just then this girl must have been fairly new, because I have no idea who she was, walks up to me and says very like, I overheard what you're saying. Who in the do you think you're to criticize our music like that? I simply said, honey, I was the principal trumpet player for 5 years. She then tried to make up for her rudeness and asked why I no longer played. I smiled and said, because of people like you, I play Star Wars CCG collectible card game competitively. Yeah, I know it's been out of print for like 14 years now, but we still have an active community. A few years back, I was playing a pickup game online against a random guy. He was playing a pretty traditional deck, and I was playing a deck that at the time looked absolutely terrible on paper, but worked beautifully. The matchup was especially bad for him, and I'm a pretty strong player. As soon as I saw what he was playing, I knew I was going to win, and informed him of this, and I totally destroyed him. He kind of goes on tilt, and he's talking about my deck. Let's play again. No way will I lose to that pile of trash 2 games in a row. I shrug my shoulders and win handily again. He still insists that my deck is terrible. Then I inform him, this deck just got second at World a couple months ago. Trust me, it's pretty good. Yeah, well, who played it? That deck looks terrible. I did. Story 13, Mario Kart 64. This was back in college, and I didn't actually realize how good I was. I'd spent countless hours in that game, just messing around in all the levels, finding the silly little tricks you can do to shave off time, practicing my banana peel aim, and perfecting the art of the upside-down question mark. Some guys in my dorm challenged me. And I was just like, sure, wipe the floor. I was flabbergasted. They had been trash-talking myself and each other. And at the end of the whole thing, they just stared at me like I was a monster before breaking out in a holy yes. So they commenced in inviting their champ over to teach me a lesson. I just idly chatted the whole time while I lapped the guy on Rainbow Road. To his and everyone else's dismay, I don't even know, most useless mastery ever. Edit spelling corrections, thanks, swipe. And obligatory, this is my highest voted post. Incredulity. Story 14, late to reply. But years ago, one of the goofiest friends of mine had a pair of those up teeth made by a dentist, so they looked extremely real and were extremely messed up. He would wear these and talk in a hillbilly drawl, acting pretty much functionally retarded. He could keep this act up for hours. In reality, he was a scratch golfer who had a full ride to a university with a nationally ranked golf team. He was wearing his teeth and scroungy clothes when playing a round of golf with a friend, and they had a pair with a couple of older CEO-type snobs who were wannabe Arnold Palmers. The older gentleman decided to take advantage of my friend for some easy money. Friend accepted and then convinced them to raise the wager to a more serious amount of money. It did not end well for the decked-out pair of CEOs. For the record, friend kept in character the entire time, leading the men to believe they got their asses kicked by an illiterate redneck. Edit, it would be so much funnier if I had a video. Now that I'm thinking about it, he looked and acted very much like Ben Stiller in Tropic Thunder when he was forced to act out Simple Jack in front of the enemy camp. Goodbye, mama. Now you can have ice cream and heaven. They'll see you again tonight when I go to bed in my head movies. But this head movie makes my eyes rain. Story 15, unfortunately, yes. It never turns out well, because I make vaccines for a living. People posting on Facebook, new parents discussing why they don't want to vaccinate their newborns, friends and relatives talking about the latest sensationalist story they heard on why Big Pharma is a terrible, evil conspiracy. I've been in the industry for 6 years now, have an education in chemical engineering. I've worked with live infectious diseases, primarily pertussis and polio, been part of the manufacturing process from growing the bacteria, inactivation leasing, purification, vial filling, start to finish. I know how they work, what the history of how they used to be made is, how seriously pharma companies take adverse events, and I know firsthand how dangerous these diseases can be, but it doesn't matter because that picture that someone shared on Facebook with a sad story about their child dying obviously knows more than me. Even when I try to explain how it actually works, their eyes glaze over and nothing gets through. It's really frustrating having all the answers to every one of their concerns and not being able to reassure them because they're too stupid to understand basic biology. Story 16, I bought a house and had a guy offer us a 20 Lowe's card to give us an in-home demonstration of water filtration technology. He came in and set up and started to spiel. He asked me what I do for a living, and I replied that I am a chemist at a water treatment plant. He stopped for a second and said, "You probably know more about this stuff than I do." He then asked to talk with my wife, who refused. He packed up and left without continuing the demo. Never got my 20 Lowe's card. Story 17, when I was like 16, my friends and I had a lightsaber battle after a couple feet of snow had fallen. Now my brother and I fought with those things constantly, for years, in the yard, on the trampoline, in the barn loft, wherever. Well, during the Battle of Hoth, there was snow in play as well. I guess I got too into it and was used to fighting my brother, who was more practiced among my friends. I was running toward a guy. He hurls a snowball. I come up with a lightsaber and hit the snowball, then come back down and hit him right near the collarbone. I was told to stop playing so hard. Sorry, can't turn this Jedi swagger off. Story 18, in high school. Many kids would challenge me to Magic the Gathering because they saw me play at lunch. Little did they know I was a Pro Tour qualifier grinder and a Grand Prix player. Story 19, Christian from algebra was a rail, always acting like a tough guy and pretending that he didn't care his grades were. He was so racist, always macking fun of me for being white. Christian, you're half white, you. Oh, but that didn't stop him. One day, I had enough of his bullshit and told him that we needed to settle this like men, even though I'm Grill. He told me if I beat his score in Tetris, he would apologize, but if I won, I would have to do his homework for the rest of the week. The lazy, jokes on you, Christian. You see? If there were an Olympic team for Tetris, I'd be the Michael Phelps of that team. Dig fine, I say, smiling inwardly. He had no idea what he was unleashing. So I open my laptop, and we begin playing. 5 minutes pass, and Christian is sweating. I know Eve got him beat. He's in desperate need of a straight line, and I know the Tetris gods are smiling down at me. This is just good practice for me, and they know it. Finally, game over flashes on his screen, and by now tears are streaming down his face. His friends are all in shock as they watch me sink line after line. Oh my God, they all bowed down to me. I cut it short at level 22, turn to Christian and scream, "Are you sorry, guys? I'm so drunk, guys, human gilded." Are you sure? Original Halo. Used to work in a school. Few kids were talking trash. Long story short, we grabbed Two's box after school. Hooked them up. 3-on-2 quickly turned into a 1v4 massacre of epic proportions. 50 to 2 or 3. Kids think they old school. They saw me nading. They hatin', pistoling, riding dirty. Story 20, I was in my mid-40s at the time. My son's babysitter, who was on the high school track team, challenged me to a foot race 200 yards or so. Big mistake. I don't know why I have never run competitively or trained in any way, but I can run. I'm 64 now and have 8 kids, none of whom has ever beat me in a foot race. They still occasionally try. Story 21, not me. But I remember a story of a kid whose dad was remodeling their garage, and he was going over the drawings with the inspector who had a chip on his shoulder and was saying that the designs wouldn't work. The dad was disagreeing, saying that it would going back and forth. The dad then asks if he would improve it if he had a PE sign off on it. The inspector agrees, and the dad goes inside and gets his PE stamp and stamps the drawing. Story 22, owner of the restaurant I work at brings in this gimmicky, as seen on TV, vegetable dicer. The kind where you still have to use a knife to get the food small enough to dice. I laughed at him as he tried to tell me how much time it's going to save us in the kitchen. He challenges me 3 onions, small dice. Winner gets a case of beer. I've been cooking professionally for close to 2 decades. So, long story short, that was some good beer. Story 23, at a barbecue last summer. My friend's nieces, kind of bratty little things, were playing on the trampoline. They were doing front flips and things. They challenged me to do what they were doing. Little did they know that I had 15 years of gymnastics and 6 years of trampolining history. I launched in with a straight double-back somersault. That simultaneously impressed them and reminded me of the value of a good warm-up. Story 24, not a challenge per se, but I'm a cricketer, and when I went to the new club, I told everyone I was a fast bowler. I don't look the part though, 58 and on the chubby side. Usually fast bowlers are lean and well over 6 feet, so naturally everyone thought I was going to be a waste of time. Not only that, they all let me know that I should try out as a batsman or a spinner to improve my chances. The premier bowler in that club could bowl at speeds up to 135 kilometers per hour on a good day. My first ball after a short warm-up clocked in at 132 kilometers per hour. No one has dared make a joke about my height and body shape again. Story 25, back in my school's anime club. We had this kid, I think the term is weeaboo, who wouldn't stop bragging about how good his Japanese is and how the rest of us should call him sensei. Apparently, he had been taking Japanese since middle school. I was actually raised in Japan. Turns out all he could do was elementary level Japanese. Couldn't even understand a single bit of colloquial Japanese or write more than a few basic sentences. Story 26, I was at a training class in Arizona a few years ago for people in a bunch of different industries. One guy was the head of quality for a particular and well-known winery in California. We all go out to dinner, and this guy orders a fairly expensive glass of wine from his winery, a restaurant. They brought over the wine, and when he sipped it, he let the waitress know that this was not the wine he ordered. She assured him it was and brought him another glass. Again, he insisted it was not the right wine. Finally, the manager came over, and our guy revealed himself as head of quality for the winery. The manager stumbled trying to make up a poor reason and admitted they ran out and figured they would replace it with a very similar and, as it turns out, much cheaper wine. The look of smug satisfaction on our guy's face was priceless. Story 27, I was 30 years old around 4 to 5 years ago. I went to a family house party of my GF where a bunch of her teenage cousins were playing Rock Band. It was a kind of if you fail the song, you have to give the controller to the next person situation. This one kid kept being A to other kids because he played on hard, so he had the highest scores and never passed the guitar around. He was annoying and didn't let other kids play, making others feel bad because they played on easy or medium. Anyway, at some point he said that he could beat anyone in the party. One of the younger kids said, "I bet Badillon could beat you. I played with him once when my GF was babysitting him." So the annoying teens started mouthing off, and they called me over. I was sitting with the adults and faked ignorance. "Oh yeah, I know this game. Guitar band, right?" So we had a plastic guitar rock off. If I won, he would let the younger kids have the console for the rest of the evening. The best score would win. Same song, of course. He selected AC/DC, Thunderstruck on hard. On my turn, I changed the difficulty to expert. He said, "I think you made a mistake," and I said no. I didn't, then proceeded to whoop his score, and wise. I became a rock god for a bunch of 12-year-olds that day. Story 28, in the boss owner of my company, and mostly just work in the office. Every year we have a Christmas party in the workshop with all of our rough, tough outside workers, lots of beer, etc. One year my partner hired a pool table, and all the guys who played in the bars every weekend were surprised that I whooped their asses. Next year was a ping pong table, same thing. The third year a table soccer game. If we ever bring in a pinball game, it'll have the quadrilla. P.S. I wasted my youth. Story 29, not challenge per se, but I had a guy start speaking agreement to me in Australia once, so I answered him in kind. I was working a ticket booth at the time, I assume. He was either trying to make me look dumb, impress me, or impress his friends. My German isn't great, but I have enough that I could reply to him. His friends laughed. It felt good. Story 30, just the other day, we lost power to the building and my work computer subsequently, and it wouldn't keep the date. It said it was 2004, so I couldn't log on to the servers or anything. Time date sync error, and the BIOS is locked, so I can't set the date. I build computers in my spare time, so I'm well versed in how things work. So this is an easy fix, replace the CMO's battery, but we have an IT department and the computers are locked with padlocks that I don't have a key to. I work in a school. So I submit a work ticket over the phone, lost power, PC doesn't keep time whenever power outage occurs. The IT guy comes out and spends 30 minutes trying to figure out why it wouldn't keep time, but it keeps time while he has it turned on and working. I'm just watching with disbelief. They pay this guy more than me to fix computers. Honestly, after half an hour, this guy pulls the power plug and plugs it back in. Is amazed the clock is off by 30 minutes, but still in 2004. So I finally tell him, replace the battery, tells me there are no batteries on PCS anymore. They use capacitor power from PSUs to hold the time. I am befuddled now as to how this guy got his job. I tell him, trust me, change the battery, set the time and date, unplug the power and see what happens. He finds the battery, says it's for giving the hard drives the power to park their drive heads after power down, and reluctantly replaces it. It works fine, but he still says it's the capacitor. It holds a charge forever. Then unlocks the BIOS for me, because I seem to understand computers enough to be able to set the date in case I need to change the time again. If it happens again, I have bolt cutters here, and will open the tower myself next time. Story 31 in college. A coworker of mine hosted a hearts tournament. Buy-in was like $10, and the top person from each of the 8 tables were matched up to play each other in 2 games. And then the top 2 of those played in the championship game. I asked to join in since he needed people to fill the tables. Do you even know how to play? It won't be like playing on the computer. You know, I think I can manage okay. I can give you some pointers if you like. I'm pretty good. I learned how to play hearts at 4, and it's something my family did throughout my childhood. I've always been able to count cards, I guess you would say, and keep track of everything that has been played. I won the championship round with a score of 7. For those of you who don't know, it's like golf. When a player crosses 100 points, the player with the lowest score wins. The person with 118, Mr. Let me know if you need any help. That $320 helped pay my rent. Thanks, dude. Story 32 is a gay man. I've had to teach way too many women about their own genitals and their own anatomy in general. Edit, sorry, I posted this sometime around 5 or 6 a.m. when I was dead tired and hadn't slept yet, so I need to clear up what I meant. I'm gay and have no experience with women. So you wouldn't expect me to know anything about female anatomy. Thing is that until I developed a drug problem, I was pursuing a career as a doctor. Gynecology was one of the fields I was interested in, so I did a lot of studying there. I really don't know why, but some women seem to think I know nothing about female bodies and sometimes feel the need to tell me about the icky things that happen to their bodies for laughs, thinking I'll be grossed out or fascinated. I've had to explain way too many times why female happens, what a menstrual cycle actually is, or that the discharge they just described should be clear and not have a strong odor, and that they need to see a doctor. I've also had to teach them about all the different types of birth control, how they each work, and how they should be used. The point is that a lot of women don't appreciate being taught about their own bodies by a guy who hasn't been inside a woman's vagina since the day he was born. Story 33, not an expert, but I know how to solve a Rubik's Cube. So when my friend arranged one side of it and was boasting about it, well, it was priceless watching him when I solved it in under a minute. Story 34, my dad is pretty much a pool pro, and this guy challenged him to a game talking hot. Well, my dad didn't miss one shot, and when he sunk all the solids, he started shooting the guy's stripes. TLDR, my dad is so he goes deep with other guys. Story 35, when I was at uni, a friend of one of my housemates was doing a PhD in Irish studies. Now I'm Irish, born there, lived in England most of my life, and don't have an accent, so most people just assume I'm English, or that because I've lived in the UK so long that I don't know much about Irish history. This guy decided to try and teach me about the Easter Rising of 1916, see here, and telling me that the flag that was raised wasn't the same one as we now know as the Republic of Ireland flag. It was a different one, to which I replied I know. My great-uncle was the one who hoisted it. We got the signed military records from that day at my parents' house, schooled. Story 36, I was at a software engineering conference in January, and a colleague saw my terminal with pink text running Vim, a text editor for Unix systems, and said, I bet you can't even exit out of that thing. Background Vim is a tool that has a notoriously steep learning curve for beginners. I'm a woman doing a computer science degree, and I always make a point of not toning down my love of doing hair, makeup, and dressing up. So I'm used to the shock I get when I tell people I'm in CS. It's not always their fault. Stereotypes exist. Some people are just bigger dicks about it than others and assume I have no clue what I'm doing. Anyways, the look on his face when I showed him what I knew was priceless. After many large projects using Vim as your sole editor, you learn a few many things, also aimed for Emacs. Story 37. On street, Patrick's Day. 3 years ago, some guy challenged me to Irish step dance off. What this guy didn't realize was that he decided to start a dance off against a world champion Irish dancer. I had all my drinks paid for after that. Story 38. I have the perfect one for this, except it wasn't me. So please allow me to tell it anyway. Girl I went to high school with was super big into target and trap shooting. She started at really young age, and by the time she was 17, she was not only competitive at international tournaments, but winning a few. She went to school on a scholarship for her shooting, and would come home in the summers to work. It was during one of these summers we were all hanging out at a friend's ranch, and this guy who was a few years older than us was bragging about how he'd been the best shot in his unit in Iraq, saying stuff like how officers would request him from other units to go on patrol with them because he could kill sand people from any distance with any gun. Well, a few of us, knowing we had a ringer that would shut this guy up, told him we bet a girl could shoot better than him. So we found a .22 and set up some targets along fence posts about 50 to 150 yards out. Loudmouth soldier, boy hit 3 out of 4. Ringer girl, not only hit 4 out of 4, she did it in rapid succession, taking probably 3 seconds to shoot all 4 cans dead center. Guy made some excuse about the light not being good or the how a .22 is not a good way to show real talent, and left the party soon after, saying he was going to go meet a girl. This is the best part. As he was getting in his lifted truck, Ringer girl ran up to him, pretended to hand him something, and says, "Hey, race your nuts back. You may need them." Best party ever, haha. Story 39. I wouldn't call myself an expert, but I grew up playing euchre with my dad and granddad. Those two knew their stuff and taught me well. At staff Christmas party last year, I was standing by the cards table. I worked for a company that was very much an old boys club. I was the only staff member present who had been there less than 15 years and was a young female, so you can imagine what they thought of me. I was asked to sit in and hold a spot while one of the guys went to go get drinks. I was partnered up with the logistics manager and was playing the CEO and engineering manager. I ended up winning 2 rounds single-handedly, and therefore the game. The CEO chewed out the engineering manager for his shoddy decision-making and stormed off. Oops. Story 40. I have a pretty good one. I was sick with a streptococcus throat infection. I've had them chronically since I was a child when I was attending college, and the nurse gave me a really hard time about getting antibiotics when I went to the on-campus clinic. She kept going on about how students don't realize that a cold won't be fixed with antibiotics, and generally being about it. So the doctor comes in, looks at my throat for about 1 second, and says, "Yep, it's strep. We'll get you some antibiotics." By the way, what do you study here? I look at the nurse in the corner beginning to fume from the doctor's answer, smile, and reply microbiology. Story 41. I had just come back from the Ultrazone Laser Tag National Championships when my office announced that we were having a laser tag team building event. The 90s were a wonderful time. Story 42. As a teenager, I was pretty good at arm wrestling, so that relatively big and older guy challenged me on that one party. I think he was in a bench press team. I destroyed him. His friends were laughing their asses off. Story 43. Last week, I was going to go upstairs to brush my teeth. Well, lo and behold, out of nowhere, my daughter gets all cocky and challenges me to race up the stairs. Now, she's 6 and in shape, but I've been running upstairs my whole life, so we line up and go charging up the stairs. Well, she won. I had to let her win like every time. Story 44. I play Counter-Strike very competitively every night, and I've played for the last 10 years. Am no expert, and am no pro in Dingeagle rank, for those who know what that means. However, when colleagues and old school friends ask what games I play, I tell them Counter-Strike. The conversation usually goes something like this. "So, Counter-Strike, I'm amazing at Counter-Strike. We should play. Sure, if you like, I'm not too bad myself. Ha, sure, I will show you who's best. I'm really good with the scout." Last time I played, I was top of the server. They add me to friends, and we play with each other, sometimes against each other, depending on the game mode. I then proceed to wreck face, and they think I'm the best player they've ever seen. This happens quite frequently with old friends. I once had a Silver 2 friend boast and work for weeks on end about how good he was. When we finally played with each other, I think I got the score 45-7.